Hello there, in this video I'm going to show you how you can create images using Stable Diffusion and how you can edit them using Photoshop. Now this is a behind the scene video, so I'm not going to go in depth in each aspect of these two pieces of software. Bear in mind that this is just a workflow on how I go about generating images, and some of you have asked me to record a video and eventually I sat down and done it today. Now, if you have any questions about Photoshop or Stable Diffusion, please leave the comment down below and I hope you enjoy it. Alright, I'm in Stable Diffusion now and I'm using an iMac which has roughly 5 years old, and if you see the configuration of my computer, I've got a Monterey, I've got a iMac 5K 27-inch 2020, I've got 3.6 GHz 10-core Intel-Core i9, I've got 128 GB of RAM, and I've got a graphic card which is an AMD Radeon Pro 5700 XT 16 GB. And although I've got this graphic card, Stable Diffusion runs quite slowly anyway. This graphic card doesn't have any CUDA cores and is not made ready for AI. Having said that, I've now generated this image and I can also preview and just click on here on the preview. Is a girl in a spacesuit with an helmet, holding an helmet, and as you can see, Stable Diffusion actually generated this helmet and the helmet here as well. We're gonna modify this later on. I'm gonna show you how to do that in Photoshop, as I cannot modify here in Stable Diffusion on my Mac because the inpainting doesn't work properly. In terms of what I use down below here, I use a pony model, which is a model I created by merging other models. Now I've got here the prompt, and I've got also the high-res fixed. When I test images, I generally turn these off because it will make the rendering much faster. When I create images like this, it takes an average of roughly 10 minutes or less. I know it's quite slow, using a Mac is not ideal, but that's what I do. I also use another software in conjunction with this. But as you can see down below here, I use also an editailer, and editailer allows me to render the face as well. I'm gonna show you this later on as well. If I use a higher CFG, which is the classifier free guidance scale, which is this one here, at the moment he is at 5.5, which is this one here. 5.5 leaves Stable Diffusion to be more creative and be less restrictive in terms of following my prompt. I'm going to explain the structure of the prompt later on, but for now I just wanted to show you the workflow, and I don't use anything else. Sometimes I use the dynamic threshold CFG scale fix. This allows me to basically control the CFG, the classifier, to be a bit more restricted, basically avoiding creating distortions and anatomically incorrect body parts. In terms of upscaler, at the moment I'm using ultra sharp upscalers, but I can actually use others as well. I've got a list here of some that you can use as well when you download the Stable Diffusion. This version here down below is the version 1.10.1 at the time of this recording. Python is 3.10.16, the Torch is 2.1.2, the Xformers I don't use any, it says not applicable because probably it's not using it on the Mac. And then I've got the checkpoint over here as well. Just if you're wondering what I was using, this is the versions that you should look at. In terms of what I do when I've got some aberration of the image, or if the image comes up not proportionally correct, I usually use this in Photoshop, and I basically modify and edit those things there using the Generative Fill within Photoshop and Generative Expand if I want to make an image perhaps in landscape mode, or if I want to modify something on an image, or if I want to add some elements in the background as well, or in the subject, I can do that in Photoshop. You can also do this in Stable Diffusion as well using inpainting, and that is under image to image on top here on the tab, and you have the inpaint options down below. So under inpaint, essentially what you do, you drag the image you just generated, and down below here you can use these parameters. I'm gonna talk about this in a later video, but for now, just to let you know where it is, it's here under image to image. Let's go back to text to image. Also use this vi here on top for rendering, which is an SDXL vi .safe tensor, and I'm using now this model, which is a pony model, and usually pony models requires this line here in the positive prompt, which is score 9, score 8, score 7 up. Under the negative prompt, I use score 6, score 5, and score 4. That will allow Stable Diffusion to don't accept anything that is below score 7, essentially, when it generates the image. And this is just the guidelines. Sometimes you might find Pony or SDXL checkpoints models that don't require to actually have score 9, score 8, and all this, jazz. You can actually just create the prompt as you like. If I want Stable Diffusion to basically follow my prompt more thoroughly, I would have to increase this number up to perhaps 7, 7.5, up to 8, or up to 10, for instance. But I wouldn't go any further than 7. But it really depends what kind of checkpoint you're using, what kind of model you're using. So for these pony models, I shouldn't go further than 7 or 8, because that will basically distort the image or create things that are not, realistic. In terms of creating my image, I use ChatGPT. So I created a custom GPT that allows me to essentially drop any image here, and then ChatGPT will ask me if it's going to be an SDXL model or an SD 1.5 model or a pony model, and based on that response, it will generate the positive and negative prompt for me. And then from there, I'm going to basically copy and paste these prompts into my Stable Diffusion web UI. I go ahead and generate the image and then see if it looks okay or not. In this case here, my image has finished to be generated, and that is the image. Now I would like to basically change and modify this image. In theory, I could use inpaint, but as I said, on my iMac, it does not work properly. So I would have to basically use Photoshop for this. So I'm going to open the image in Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how I modify the image using AI there. Drag the image into Photoshop, and by the way, I'm using Photoshop 2025. This is Photoshop Beta, and I'm going to basically zoom in the image. What I want to do essentially is I would like to remove this helmet from here, because on the prompt I said, girl in a spacesuit holding an helmet, and that's what she does here. But I don't want to have her anything on her head. So I'm gonna go to my lasso tool. I'm going to highlight this area here, and let's see if it works properly or not. I'm going to basically say to remove it, and I've got here this option to remove, and let's see if it works properly or not. Sometimes it does a good job, sometimes it doesn't. So in this case here, it removed the helmet, but it made the head quite weird. So I would have to go back and undo, and I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna deselect, select again the helmet. I'm gonna press remove. Sometimes the second attempt might work. It's still weird, so I'm gonna just press edit, undo, and I'm going to instead using Generative Fill. In this case here, I want to just say brown hair and press generate. It usually gives me three options. Okay, I've got one here with a hat. I've got here on the right hand side hair with different hats. Not exactly what I wanted, but I can just press generate again. I'm gonna put hair without putting anything else. Okay, here I still got a hat, which I don't really want. What I can do though, I can highlight this again, and basically remove that from the equation. I'm just doing a rough edit just to see if I can quickly fix some problems. Okay, it's done a better job now. In terms of everything else here, I would leave it as it is, and then I'm gonna basically save this and export it. So as you see, this is the modified version, and the original version in Stable Diffusion looks like this. So on the left you have the Photoshop version, and on the right you have the Stable Diffusion version of the image. As you can see, I could manage to remove the helmet, even though I have to fiddle around quite a bit with the hair. In terms of other things I can add, for instance, other emblems, or perhaps other elements in the back if I wanted to, or perhaps I want to add an emblem here on the helmet. I can do that. So for instance, if I want to do that, I can go to the lasso tool and I can highlight the area there, and I'm going to just say Generative Fill. I'm gonna say space sticker. Just do that instead. Perhaps it's going to come up with something more flashy. And there we go. I've got here the sticker saying space. I could just say flag sticker, and after this I'm gonna just leave it as is. A couple of flags. Let's say, man, this is quite cool actually. I'm gonna leave this one for now. And then what I do, I essentially adjust the image a little bit. I'm going to adjustments. I can go to brighten. I can use the auto brightness tool and see if it does a good job. It's very subtle here. I can just go to brightness and make it slightly brighter. Contrast, I can change the contrast here. And I can go to adjustment, I can go to levels. I can do the same thing here with auto to make the image more interesting. I can do the before and after. And that's it. And then I basically export the image and I publish it. And this is the way I basically use Stable Diffusion and Photoshop in order to edit my images. And if you are interested to know how to use Photoshop, I have a mini course for beginners here down below in the description, so feel free to join me there. And in terms of knowing more about Stable Diffusion, please follow up, like the video, and subscribe to this channel for more tips coming out soon. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.